Right, back to our journey through Johto. We've got a good amount of grinding to do before we move on to the next town. And that grinding is probably not going to be helped by the fact that I have a member of the team I literally called Tumbleweed. Granted, that grass Pokemon could possibly turn into something more capable of holding its own in a fight, but good God, what it starts out as are... But I suppose names are arbitrary and it should not be the basis for how we decide who stays on the team and who doesn't, so yeah, maybe Tumbleweed will be a more permanent guy later on. Well, I should certainly hope that being a level higher than our opponent means that Mothra doesn't need to be switched out. Definitely like that Mothra stayed in green health there, even if she's not going to be especially useful against the first gym. The less switching off I have to do, the sooner we get to the next gym and get things actually rolling. Not that the amount of time we do this really matters all that much when I'm fast-forwarding, or when I'm blatantly just grinding levels to get stronger with Pokemon I doubt we're going to keep even long enough to see the first gym. Just 3 more levels and Mothra will be at the acceptable level for me to want to move on. And there's no way I'm sending Mothra against a Pidgey unless we're 2 levels higher at the very least. I mean, good God. I'm pretty sure that Pidgeys eat Caterpies. It's funny just how much I don't like Pidgey and its evolutions, considering that Pokemon was one of Ash's first major hitters in the anime. I just felt like the poor thing was a generic bird in the same generation where we got the 3 legendary birds. There is nothing to make it seem especially amazing compared to Spearow and Fearow in terms of appearances, and it has no extra typing. Whereas Fearow feels like a visual baseline for Zapdos and Moltres. Hell, I thought that if you gave a Fearow a Thunderstone or Firestone, you could get one of the legendary birds there. It just made sense to me as a kid. And considering how Eevee works, I'm surprised no other Pokemon works that way. Maybe if they did more to make Pidgeot look like Articuno, I would have had a better opinion of it. But I suppose it doesn't matter all that much. As much as I like the legendary birds, it's not like I've ever actually used them in teams I've had over the years. Why bother having an Articuno on your team if you're gonna have to beat so many gym leaders just to get the chance to gain it, and then the absolute next gym you have to deal with is the Fire Gym, that is a direct counter to your Ice Bird. And it doesn't evolve from any lower-end birds. So it's not like you can start your journey with a baby Articuno who grows into an absolute monster of a flyer as the journey goes on, if you give the little guy enough love and care. It's not a great thing to divide the experience 3 ways there, but it's not like I had a lot of other options. Well, we have a full team for whatever that's worth right now. Anyone else we gain is likely to replace someone who's currently on our active roster. Huh. Could have sworn Poison was super effective against Bug. Guess that's another change they did between Generation 1 and 2. Oh, please don't tell me that a Weedle is gonna lose to a Caterpie. That was certainly closer than I'd like it. Back to the Pokemon Center. Kinda makes me wish we could book a room in the Pokemon Center, considering the sheer number of times we keep coming back there. After all, I'm sure that Chris here could use the occasional break as well as our Pokemon. Not that she has any health bar or PP points or something. It's just something I can't help chuckling about. Until I saw the anime episode where an explicit human doctor had to sub for a Nurse Joy in a Pokemon Center, I was under the impression that the Pokemon world cared about Pokemon lives and health to the exclusion of human health, and that itself feels odd. To have to even consider that when fighting is such a big part of Pokemon life cycles that creatures apparently don't get to mature and grow to their next forms unless they go through quite a few battles. I would completely understand if that was just a video game only mechanic, but the manga and anime support that line of thought. So what, does that mean you could potentially have a 40-year-old Caterpie that can't reach the Metapod stage because he doesn't get into any fights whatsoever anymore? And just how do Gyarados show up in the wild if Magikarp is in need of a lot of careful attention when a trainer takes them up? I know, it's one of many things in this universe I'm not supposed to think that hard about, but playing through any Pokemon game, you've got a lot of footage to go through. It takes quite a while to complete a single playthrough, so it's very easy for the mind to wander. I'm not all that convinced that Stuart is great at trading blows with a Pidgey. Not someone that screws him over entirely, especially this early on, but still, that makes the earlier grinding with him a bit iffy. Once again, back to the Pokemon Center. Plenty of our heavier hitters are worn down. Well, the heavy hitters that aren't at least level 8 just yet. Well, considering how low level we are, it's probably a bit presumptuous to call anyone a heavy hitter. Gramash doesn't even have his first fire move yet. One of our strongest attacks right now is Tackle, about as basic as they come. And while we have some decent type coverage for a team as a whole, there's not a lot of type coverage for our attacks. We've got normal and poison. I don't think we got anything else. It would have been slightly funny if Stuart got poisoned the instant he came out here. Instead, it was a second shot. Again, there's some damn good reasons why I'm not doing a Nuzlocke run and why I would be leery of ever giving myself those kinds of limits. I'm just not that good and I know it. Yeah, definitely not a lot of options for who to fight that Pidgey. As much as I want everyone to make it to level 8, this is definitely a set of circumstances where someone who's entirely made it there should get some action. Well, at least we managed to get to the center before Stuart was taken out by the poison again. That's a small mercy. Anyway, time for a quick save and we're back out there. Okay, apparently quick wasn't the right word because day has turned to night. I've got to admit, I kind of like that lighting. But again, one of the things that really annoys me about most of the later Pokemon games is that they have the whole day and night cycle thing. I know I keep saying it, but when you can only gain certain Pokemon at certain times a day and some items only show up at certain times of the week, it really feels like the game wants you to schedule things with the game. And I would very much prefer for an especially long game that I am playing through over a long period of time, to let me just sit down, relax whenever I feel in the mood to play the game, and not make me wonder if I should have played a few hours or even days later so I could do such and such. Granted, you can easily beat the single-player experience without ever having to get any of the time-specific or day-specific stuff. It's not like the Pokemon you grab at night are amazingly better than the ones you can gain in the morning. There's nothing that makes Hoot Hoot better stats-wise than Spearow or Pidgey as far as I can tell. He's just another normal flyer. Still, appearance-wise, I still like him and his evolution more than Pidgey, so there's that. I went with calling him Bugle since, well, calling him Cuckoo felt a bit too obvious. Guess we're catching another one. Zubat is a bit of a pain in the ass to train, especially early on when there are a lot of Pokemon that resist its first attack move that only does Bug-type damage. Still, I tend to look at Crobat in the same way as Gyarados. Pretty damn pathetic and forgettable in their first forms, absolutely worth having on your team in their final form. It is going to take an absolutely monumental effort of will to make sure that every team from here on out doesn't have a Golem, Gyarados, and Crobat in them. I could get away with it in the first generation since Crobat didn't exist, but Geodude, Magikarp, and Zubat are very common in pretty much all the regions as far as I know. 2 of them have even been called cave herpes, so what does it say that I would eagerly catch them over and over again? Or that I'm typically pretty willing to capture pretty much everything we come across early in the game. Then there comes a point where I just stop bothering to throw Pokeballs at all. Well, this just goes to prove that even the Activision Blizzard's various issues at the moment, I still have a spot in my heart for all their old stuff. My starter is named after a hero from Warcraft, and I just named the spider creature we got after a Zerg unit from Brood War, instead of going for something Lord of the Rings inspired like Shelob. So I'm getting rid of Pelaram when she's one of our most effective Pokemon right now. Bit of an interesting choice, especially since Splendor isn't going to be especially amazing out there against various birds and bug types when his only attack has a bug typing. Hell, Mothra and Gaban are among our strongest right now, and that's pretty sad. Definitely hoping we get lucky with a poison as we trade blows here. As if the grinding process wasn't mind-numbing enough, I decided to put someone who's just barely a step above a Magikarp on the team right now. It could be worse, but it's still not gonna be conducive to getting us to the first gym in a reasonable amount of time. How much sooner would that have finished if that bird was poisoned earlier on? Right, getting rid of another bit of dead weight since I can only afford so much of the team at a given time. Guess Pelaram is getting back on the team in a hurry since we have so few options right now. Again, I really feel like my dislike of the Pidgeline is a bit of an irrational thing, considering it's just a generic flying type. So generic, it was probably the first flying type thought up in the first generation's design process and all that. Well, I certainly was luckier than before with this random Hoothoot. And that luck is almost immediately missed with by that random critical. It's just amazing how luck-based so many things are in the Pokemon games, and yet people still act like it's pretty easy overall. Hell, I've seen plenty of Nuzlocke runs that look more like something I'd expect from XCOM, with poor rookies missing even the most sure shot, while getting hit with a low-chance strike, casualties mounting in the most bullshit of ways. It's that funny thing where I like to watch other people go through Nuzlocks for the tension, but I would hate to go through one myself, since that's not how I have fun when actually playing through a Pokemon game. Well, Stuart did a good job against the last one, so no harm in sending him out against another. Well, that was certainly closer than I'd like. Oh, that's a new one. I certainly wasn't expecting to get a water type this early on, that's for sure. Yeah, Flender certainly isn't winning this exchange. Not that we need to win when we're trying to capture the bastard. Well, that's good enough for a ball to be thrown. With that spiral in his gut there, there's only one name that works, and I've got to say, I like the Poliwag line. The only reason I would be likely to keep the poor guy on our team for the entire game is simply for the same reason I'm unlikely to keep our Sentret. I really want to avoid having an HM slave on our team, and 3 or more moves dedicated to HMs on a single Pokemon just feels wrong to me. Yeah. Goodbye, Mothra. It doesn't look like you're gonna make it to the Metapod stage in this playthrough. It's hard to avoid that sort of thing coming across as callous as all hell. And it's such a common thing to happen at the start of a Pokemon playthrough, seriously. The game's attempts to make the player seem like some ultra-caring trainer that wins due to caring about his or her team more than anyone else just falls flat with the way we can just casually discard team members and leave them permanently benched for at times arbitrary reasons. There is a reason that fanfiction and various other Pokemon-related media tend to try to gloss over the whole awkwardness of saying you're friends with the Pokemon you capture, when so many end up sitting in a numbered box for the rest of the game. It just feels oddly out of place considering the world and the usual themes around it. But it's a gameplay mechanic that's been a part of the franchise since the first game. Just like how filling out the Pokedex has been a thing in every game, even when Professor Oak doesn't show up at all. Though I'm sure in some of the side games, like Conquest and Ranger, they do a better job with that sort of thing. Wonder how long it's going to take for me to get around to get into those games, especially since I'm pretty likely to play through Soul Silver, Emerald, and Omega Ruby before doing anything else especially long in this series. Though I might be able to slip in Pokemon Snap 2 into the old Puzzle League game from the N64, among all the various other projects I've got in mind to work on. Ugh, so many games to work on, and so many of them are just time-consuming monsters. right. Of course she's poisoned after the first attack, because Lady Luck is an absolute troll. Anyway, that should about do it for this clip. I certainly like how the team is looking this early on, that's for sure. We'll see if there are any changes in the next clip, and if I actually make it to the first gym.